And as Twitch concluded playing Pokemon, Herve began playing Life. It had been 4 minutes since Herve had left Pallet Town, and already he had neared his next destination of Viridian City. Viridian City was a town replete with Pokemon centers, Pokemon marts, and empty Pokemon gyms. Herve decided that now that ConBonJovi was healed, it was a good idea to stop by the market and see what supplies he could gather for what was sure to be an uncomfortable first leg of his journey. Inside, he was greeted by a generic-looking Pokemon Mart executive who had a mission for him. A very fruitful mission. And so Herve began his journey to the town from whence he had once departed. That was a mouthful. Forgive me, I don't write these narrations in advance. The Rattatas always fell quickly to ConBonJovi, as did the Pidgeys. Herve hadn't seen any of them in a while. He presumed they were busy, flying, and being free as the gust of wind that blew. Oak asked a slightly ironic question, considering that Herve had only left his home 7 minutes prior. But Herve did not question. He told the man that his old Pokemon was well, and that was the end of that. In other news, the Bulbasaur waited on that table until the end of days. And then Quinn arrived. Go Quinn, no one thought. Way to go, Quinn. No one even considered. Quinn, you are the greatest man known to mankind, said no one ever. And thus it was true. Herve examined his Pokedex. It was red and shiny. It made him happy. An emotion Herve did not know he could feel, as there was only ever one expression that ever decorated his face. The Pokeballs would serve Herve nicely. Perhaps it was time to go out and catch a Pidgey and Rattata, as soon as Oak was finished reminiscing about his lost glory days. And so Quinn decided to be arrogant and totally provoke Herve into doing something that otherwise may not have occurred if Quinn had just kept his mouth shut. Don't you see, Quinn? You're setting your own downfall in motion. It's beautiful. But what did Herve do, some of you might ask? Well, Herve left Professor Oak's house and pondered visiting his mother, but instead decided to call Quinn's bluff and go ask his sister Daisy for a town map. Quinn had presumed that Daisy would not lend him a town map. The universe responded, LOL, nope. And so Herve was off once again to see his mother. And after accidentally running into a wall, his mother would grant him asylum in their home, allowing him to rest for a Pokemon Center-esque 3-second waiting period. And then they were off again, this time to begin building Herve's 6-man army to lead him to the Pokemon League. Victory would be his. Victory would be his. He came across a Rattata, a male. Herve knew he had this one in the bag. This Pokemon would be his, and it would be over. Okay. Herve resolved to try again. Another Rattata. This one would surely live longer than a few moments in one turn. He debated. Amber had proven to serve him faithfully. Scratch. ConBonJovi had lost control and another Rattata was lost. Herve cursed his existence. Couldn't he just capture one Pokemon? This Pidgey would suffice. Hello, Pidgey. ConBonJovi attacked. The Pidgey's health was low. Now was the time to strike with the Pokeballs that had been granted to him by the Nutty Professor. And so the Pokeball flew. He waited and waited. And then the Pidgey was his. And thus, so was a Pokedex entry that meant nothing to Herve whatsoever. Of course he would give the Pidgey a name. He didn't even have to consider it. He would name it after an old friend of his from school. At least, that's who he thought Nico was. Maybe the Pidgey just looked like a Nico. He would never know. And thus another Rattata arrived, and Herve thought that it was time to rectify his previous mistakes. The scratch brought Rattata to within an inch of death, or fainting. Let's call it death. And then the Pokeball flew. And another waiting period. And the Rattata was his. This one was female. For some reason, staring into its cold red eyes. Or warm red eyes. Eyes. Herve knew exactly what name to give this creature. A name filled with nobility and honor. A name that would surely not insult anyone, and should not insult anyone. And so he named it Rachel. And so ConBonJovi, Nico, and Rachel set off for Viridian once again, facing the same sort of trials Connor had faced on their previous visit. Herve had taken to calling ConBonJovi Connor as a short name, a short nickname for a nickname. Do not question the ConBonJovi nicknames. They will not harm you. And so ConBonJovi once again annihilated every threat in their wake. Slowly making his ascension towards level 11. Another healing session at the Pokemon Center, and ConBonJovi, Nico, and Rachel were restored to full health, as Herve had always known they could be. And thus Herve decided that before he could progress any further, he would help Nico and Rachel attain the same level of strength as his loyal ConBonJovi. He had read up on a strategy. He would send Nico in as head of the party, then withdraw him, and send ConBonJovi in to finish the job and deliver the experience. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Little did Herve know that it was, in fact, a legitimately good idea. They split the experience points gathered from the fight, and thus the fight went on. Herve went hunting once again for another victim, but that made him sound like the villain, and Herve is the hero of our story. It was too difficult to classify him as any one being, so Nico would fight in Herve's name. He would charge into battle. Connor considered sending ConBonJovi in, but after seeing the damage Nico inflicted, he made the wrong decision, which went totally well for him. And thus, ConBonJovi was sent in to finish the job, and the job was finished. And thus, with a Pokemon down for the first time in his 16-minute existence, Herve knew that it was time to save him. And so they saved the game and returned home. Until next time.